Hello, I'm Old Gibbs, and welcome to Speaking of Everything. Well, I have a very, very interesting person with me, a man that is involved in this community. I'm sure you're waiting to find out who's this gentleman. Well, I'm going to tell you soon. But before that, the Windward Islands Bank is one of the sponsors of Speaking of Everything. Windward Islands Bank has been around for a long, long, long time. You need a mortgage, you need a car loan, whatever your financial needs are. It's the Windward Islands Bank in Phillipsburg, in Simpson Bay, and in Cul-de-sac. And we also have GEBE, or Local Water and Electricity Companies, also sponsors Speaking of Everything. And GBE, it's been around for some 6 decades, serving the people of St. Martin. GBE for all your water and electricity needs. You're watching Speaking of Everything, the longest running television program in the history of St. Martin. And with me this evening, I have a very outstanding gentleman, Mr. Jimmy Chandler. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, sir. Good evening.
Well, it's good to have you in the program. It's been a while since we had you here in the program, right?
Yes, it's been a while. Of course, a pleasure to be back.
Good. How things are going with you and everything?
Things are good in the sense that we have to be grateful for being in a position of, to help others, whether in community work through the Lions or whether it's on the job as a banker. I have the opportunity to help our people, and that's important, while trying to find a balance as well with family and personal achievements that I have in the pipeline, yes.
So how long have you been a member of the Lions Club?
Well, I recently received a very nice letter
Really?
late last year indicating that I've been with the club for 10 years. And it went by pretty fast. So I'm on my 11th year now with the rest of the St. Martin Lions Club, helping people in various projects. As you know, right now we have the car raffle, which will take place in June for Father's Day. So those funds that are being, gotten from the community, they'll go back into the community in terms of our healthcare promotion or donation towards people that need help with their glasses. All those things we are working on right now, and of course with the support of the community.
And so what else you've been doing? Because I know you, can I say you're still a politician?
It's fair enough to say that I still am, in the sense that I continue to remain in touch. I continue to engage with members of parliament or other people in position of government that can keep me abreast, or read the newspaper and follow like everyone else. As you know, I've never held elected office. However, as a private citizen, I continue to be informed and remain engaged.
But I'm sure you have ambitions to someday hold public office, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's important. I think when your heart is in the right place and you have the knowledge, experience, and also an ability to listen,
right,
and gauge what the people are looking for, those ingredients, automatically you continue to push and strive forward in terms of wanting to hold that office, to do the things that will benefit the people of St. Martin.
So how many years now that you have been running as a politician on the National Alliance list, right?
I've been on the National Alliance list in the last 3 elections. They have been, I must say, quite exciting, quite different. Once under the leadership of William Marlin, now with Sylveria Jacobs. And of course, as time goes by, politics evolves, the players change, and the people also change their mind as to what they want. The environment changes in terms of what their needs are, and it behooves us as leaders in the community to adapt to those needs.
So are you surprised the way things are going these days? Anything surprise you?
Yes, from the perspective that we are facing quite some new challenges, and at the same time, I also respect the fact that some of these challenges are challenges that we've been having for decades. challenges that we should have addressed many years ago in a different format and in a more serious manner, in a more structural, long-term planning of the country. Because we do not plan in long terms, we continue to face the same music all the time. We're not learning the lesson of organizing ourselves and supporting each other to get the job done.
Well, you know, the Dutch government for decades have been complaining about what you just said, and we can see the results now because the coho, it's inevitable. We can't avoid it, although politicians are saying, well, it's not passed by Parliament yet, but I don't see it going any other way.
Look, ultimately, when the little bit that I've read about the coho, when you look at it, it's a document that is a reflection of what the Dutch think needs to happen within the country. So if you look at healthcare, they speak about the hospital, they speak about SZV and the collection of premiums and balancing the books. They talk about you know, the spending of government. They talk about restructuring the tax office, being tax compliant, and increasing taxes. Now, one could look at the entire cohort and say, well, you know, you don't agree, it's infringing on our democratic right. And while that may be the case, we also have to come to a reality that these are items that we should have been addressing over time. The challenge that we find ourselves now is that we're between a rock and a hard place where everything is being shoved down our throat and basically saying, fix these things, which ultimately the public is the one that is going to face the brunt of the challenge. We who are the taxpayers, we who have to now become more compliant, while over time we were allowed to do things very relaxed. We've come to realize the country can no longer bear that in the manner that we've been doing things, and we need to address it. Whether the coho is being done or being implemented the right way is another thing, and that is the role then of our parliamentarians to fight and say, listen, I understand we have to be tax compliant, that's fine. That means that compliance means, if you're not compliant, it basically means that there are some people that are not doing what is expected of them as a citizen. They're not filing on time, they're not paying the right amount of taxes for whatever reason. It can be because they don't know, they haven't been taught, or simply they're being negligent. On the other hand, to simply just increase taxes on persons who have been compliant, who have been trying their best and you know, basically running their business, running their lives, and all of a sudden you come up with, let's say, 20 new arrays of taxes on someone who's already trying to make it by because of Irma, because of the pandemic, or whatever the case may be, to simply push everything down that person's throat. What you're going to do is you're going to destroy the very fabric of that person's being, and by default their family, and it spreads to the rest of the community.
Well, unfortunately, the ones that pay the most taxes are us. Yeah. Other people come here, make a lot of money, and just disappear.
Correct. I think what we need to do, and what I would have done as an MP, is ensure that you look at each element of the coho, you look at each element of our resources and what we are dealing with, and ensure that the implementation is done to the best benefit of the taxpayer. For example, there's a lot of talk about the property tax. The property tax is something that has been there forever and a day. It's within our tax structure. It was just not implemented over time. For whatever reason, the powers at that time did not worry with it. However,
it was necessary because St. Maarten was a very poor island.
Correct.
So in those days, you know, the politicians got together and said, look, we can't afford this.
Correct.
And they honor it in the form of Nelson Tillies.
Correct. And this is where now you as an MP need to fight and say why you don't want the property tax. In the event that one has to do it, because you need the funding to be able to balance the books of government to cover all our services, whether it's healthcare, education, our road network, our total infrastructure. If you have to go that route and you don't have a choice, you cannot simply implement the formula of the Dutch or the formula of the IMF. You need to look at your situation. For example, somebody residing in the area of Point Blanche, in the area of South Reward, which I think those are where you have government long lease. In those areas, those people are already paying, for example, their annual long lease. And if you put property tax on what has already been built, if you go about implementing that without doing an analysis and a calculation, what you're going to get is then an excessive burden on that specific group without thought. Someone who is on private property that is not long lease and is already paying very high insurances, paying, let's say, maintenance costs for the property. As you know, a lot of us built our homes through jollification over the years, family support, and what have you. And you implement a tax that is based how the Dutch would normally do it, which is how much square meters your house has, or whether it's next to the sea, or whether it's in a high-end neighborhood. Whatever structure that is used, we need to make sure that it is not to the detriment of our people. When you're introducing a new tax, it should, in my opinion, be done in increments. You start with a very small amount and you grow as you go along and adapt as need be.
But I think some politicians are saying, look, we have to remove it completely, because a few years back, it was introduced again by a Minister of Finance. And you will think that, knowing the makeup of St. Martin, we are a very unique island in the Caribbean. A lot of people from St. Martin, large families, have a lot of land to inherit. And a lot of this inherited land, you can't find the owners. I had Deputy Governor here recently. He spoke about it. Member of Parliament Ludmilla de Weaver said she will not support that in Parliament. So it is very important to the people of St. Martin. I think we've gone, what, 40, 50 years now without that, and I think people get accustomed to it. And to introduce it now, when we have this situation now where outsiders are coming here, starting a business, making money and disappearing, and then we, the people of St. Martin, have to carry the burden again. We have carried another burden.
And I understand that. I understand that 100%. The question is, we are at a deficit. And what are we going to do about that deficit, whether the coho is there or not? What are we going to do to make sure that we protect the ones that are already paying, that we respect them, that we enter into negotiations at the tax office and how we deal with them, and what do we do with the ones who are not compliant? If we take a decision that we should not do the property tax and is supported, then we need to sit back and say which areas are we not compliant enough. So if you deal with the compliance factor first, before introducing new taxes, you will know the real gap.
But why is the one that's speaking about fiscal responsibility? You know, we only looking at where we can get the money from. What about government tightening its belt?
The government is the main, how do I say, its main responsibility is to protect its people, to keep them safe and provide them with the services that they require. They are not able to do those services if you don't have enough funding to serve those services. At the same time, I do agree with you. There are certain areas, and you saw where in the last two administrations, where there was a curb on spending as it relates to telecommunications, where government restructured and ensured that their telephone bills are more in line with what is really happening. You saw where there's cuts on how many vehicles, how the vehicles are used. So it is happening within government. And I agree that more tightening can be done, but it's a balance. And at the end of the day, if that balance is not found, what you're going to have is a government that doesn't have enough resources to do what it has to do, and you have a group of us as citizens suffering because the quality level of the services is not met.
But you know, we are already there for years now, and the thing is that it took the former Nelson Antilles, 50 years to arrive at the 5 billion plus gilded debt. It took us here in St. Martin from 10 to now, just under 12 years, to arrive at a 1.4 billion gilded debt, something we never thought would happen.
Well, look, if you go back to the Netherlands Antilles, our services were shared with the other islands. Yeah, we, in my opinion, took on a structure that is complex, more cumbersome for the size of our island. We are about to go in election, provided that everything remains stable, and we go into elections in 2024. So you would have around November, October, you will have the postulation, and then you'll have elections in January, which I'm hoping government would change that in the sense that campaigning during Christmas and, you know, taking away the true spirit of Christmas, and that's just me thinking family, thinking peace and quiet during Christmas. But all in all, according to the law and the 4-year period, if everything remains stable, we would have elections then. Then you will see where, because of the population size, we will go from 15 MPs to 17 MPs, and from, I think, 7 ministers, I think it's going to increase as well. Now, do we really need an additional 2 MPs? You see, so that in itself, because we're following that structure that is inherited from the former Netherlands Antilles, which is inherited actually from Holland, based on population size, we also need to reflect and say, and I know maybe some MPs will say, well, Jimmy, you're cutting yourself out, because if you run and you don't cut it within those 15, then you're out. But I also have to be realistic that if I'm going to put my country, despite of the law, into a more financial challenge because I have to increase, or I have to put in an additional structure within government, which is going to incur more costs, who's going to pay for it? Ultimately, we all are. So we have to also adapt. There are laws that we can pass, there are things that we can do and postpone until such time that we are ready and we have the funding to spend. That is when it should be done.
In case you've just joined us, you're watching Speaking of Everything. I'm Earl Gibbs. I'm here speaking with Mr. Challenger. Mr. Challenger is a member of the National Alliance. The National Alliance is in a coalition government with the UP Party, and he's, I must say, you handle yourself very well as a National Alliance guy. They can't get angry with you for the answers you gave here tonight, for sure. Anyway, Mr. Chandler, we have to go to a break. We're going to come right back, continue to speak with you. All right?
Okay.
Please stay with us.
In order to know what you want out of life, you need to observe, listen, and try it yourself.
Promises, we can make it if we work together. That's just how it is. Let's stand strong, and serve the land. Working hard as one nation. Yes, we can.
The more difficult it is to achieve, the more satisfying it is to make it.
Just believe in us, we'll see you through it all. Oh, never give up. Oh, never give up. We can make it.
Never forget those who were there for you. And if you dream big, you might just achieve it.
The power to serve, standing for community. OGB got the power to serve, the power to serve. We got the energy.
Watching Speaking of FM, my guest is Mr. Jimmy Challenger. Mr. Challenger is a member of the National Alliance, and the National Alliance is in a coalition government with the party. And Mr. Challenger, you work in the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
So next month when you get your salary, are you going to convert it to Bitcoins?
No.
No?
That's a very quick answer, in the sense that, you know, as a banker, we know, you know, you have regulations, and regulations that are put forth by the central bank. The central bank recognizes our Antillean guilder, our euro, our US dollar as a currency, a legal tender that you know, that you pay with and that people respect,
Right.
and that you're held legally liable if you don't honor the rules and regulations of having that legal tender. At the same time, the central bank and other lending institutions around the world are facing the new way of business, everything online, and as such, these new currencies are coming into play, and the regulators have to come to terms with it. They have to think out of the box as to where we're going to go with the crypto currencies. People are using them, they're honoring them. At the same time, they're not regulated by the central banks, and as such,
it's also dangerous.
it is dangerous. You're basically taking the risk, and you have to decide how much risk you want to take. I would never discourage anyone from engaging with the cryptocurrency. I would say move cautiously, do your research, and ensure that you do a calculated risk as it relates to the cryptocurrencies.
Well, you know, governments all over the world are happy to control people. And one way to control you is when you have governments fully in control of cryptocurrency. They can also decide whether or not you're going to buy toilet paper or not. and it's very, very dangerous. I'm not really in favor of it. I think we have sufficient government control already in the world. We saw what happened with the pandemic.
Right.
And for me, it's a big concern. But again, we have politicians in St. Martin that will be collecting their salary and converting it to cryptocurrency, Bitcoins next month. So,
well, you know, that's that person's or person's choice.
Yeah.
I think it's not wise to convert the entire thing. I think if you want to do part and you want to engage in the, as you know, it's
speculative too.
Yes, and it gives you a certain value for now. As long as people continue to purchase into it, the value of that currency by default increases. If a new cryptocurrency comes out, and we know there are about 3 or 4 around that are popular that are in the market right now, fifth one comes out, maybe the one you're holding loses its value because there is no official regulation with it. So you would have to, just like how you would invest in the stock market, which is also has its own risks, you will have to keep track on your cryptocurrency, and I would not recommend putting your entire salary in one shot into it at all.
Let me ask you, what are your feelings about inflation in St. Martin now?
I think the inflation is higher than it should be. I think that has to do with the need for more control, and at the same time, calculative control and control that comes with information. Too often we may say something is too high without really having the information of it.
Right.
Fair enough. I saw a interview not so long ago with the head of the, I think it's called Inside Government, and the head of the research department, Ms. Veronica Webster, was being interviewed, and you see where surveys now are being conducted. These are ongoing, and you know, surveys are very important. When government reaches out to you for information, it is not necessarily that you're going to be put under the microscope on something. If we do not know what you are going through, if we do not know what your spending habits are, if we do not know, you know, how the cost of things are affecting you as a person, if that collective data is not had, the decision making becomes more difficult for government.
So is it safe to say that inflation is actually higher than what we claim tonight?
I believe it's higher than what it should be. And again, we are facing also the very nature that we import everything. We still have not found that balance. We are importing more than we are actually producing for ourselves.
That will never change.
I-
I don't like it never, but
it
it's
can
difficult,
be reduced slightly by basically looking into manufacturing for ourselves. You do not have to manufacture everything, but we need to start somewhere. We need to be able to export out. We need to be able to import raw materials, produce things that we ourselves can use, and give us some sense of price control over items. We tend to just import everything. Manufacturing would bring jobs. Manufacturing would bring a sense of pride, because when you put those raw materials together, you have to put that St. Martin flag on it. You have to put that made in Phillipsburg, if you want to say, and that in itself builds a nation. Back in the day, we had Nagico, which is still around. Nagico was homegrown. You have F.W. Vlon, that was homegrown. That one is no more.
None of them are, Nagico is no longer.
Correct, no longer.
They all have disappeared, actually.
Correct. We had St. Martin Commercial Bank, which was homegrown and owned by our own. And I think for me, if I were an MP today, my main focus would be on putting economic things in place, economic drivers, special programs besides the NRPB, laws and regulations that can stimulate the ownership of business to a point that they grow, that we have better control of our economy and our decision making, and it has to be a catalyst coming out of government.
It's a challenge. We out of time. It went so fast.
Yes.
And the last time I had you here was a year ago, so it's good to have you back again. And we have 30 seconds, all yours in closing.
I'd like to say to the people of St. Martin that, you know, from just looking outside like everyone else, government is not an easy place to be at, I can imagine. There are many things that have to be balanced. And we on the outside have to do our part to ensure that things move and continue to move in the right direction, while at the same time remaining vigilant, staying in touch and reminding our elected persons, you know, the challenges that we are facing and what they have to do on their part.
Again, thank you very much and much success, all right?
Thank you.
And that's it for now. See you next time. Until then, take care.